Hello and welcome to the Remote Revolution, a podcast by Virtual Mojo. This is where we explore how modern businesses are transforming the way they work through remote teams, virtual support, and smarter operational strategies. In each episode, we bring you insights, conversations, and practical ideas to help entrepreneurs, leaders, and growing companies build efficient, scalable, and future-ready organizations. If you're looking to work smarter, scale faster, and unlock the power of remote talent, you're in the right place. Let's begin.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 14 of the Remote Revolution, with your host Aneeq and Umaima as our guest. Today we talk about why businesses that start with freelancers eventually pay twice.
Thanks for having me. This is a topic I am incredibly passionate about.
Yeah, and it is a really interesting one. You know, usually when you decide to fix something around the house, say a suddenly leaky pipe under the kitchen sink, you are faced with a pretty simple choice.
Right, the classic homeowner dilemma.
Exactly. You can call a professional plumber, pay the premium and go to sleep knowing the problem is actually solved for good. Or if you are anything like me on a lazy Sunday afternoon, you grab a roll of heavy-duty duct tape.
Oh no, I know exactly where this is going.
You wrap it around that pipe a dozen times, and you proudly declare yourself a mechanical genius because you just saved like $200.
And it works. For a minute anyway.
Right. And the funny thing is, for the first 10 minutes, you truly feel like a genius. The tape holds, the dripping stops, it's fantastic.
But then you leave the house.
Yes. You leave for the weekend, you come back 2 days later to a completely flooded kitchen, ruined hardwood floors, and a structural repair bill that is 10 times what that original plumber would have charged in the first place.
It is, well, it's a classic trap of human optimization. We naturally optimize for the immediate bleeding neck crisis right in front of us, And we are just completely blind to the systemic disaster we are setting up for ourselves just a few miles down the road.
Which brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are taking a hard, slightly controversial look at a quiet phenomenon that is currently sinking growing businesses everywhere.
It really is everywhere right now.
We are going to dig into the operational data to uncover why the cheap, fast, and easy route of building a company almost entirely on the backs of temporary freelancers is actually a massive financial trap.
Yeah, we're looking at why founders who start with freelancers almost always end up paying twice.
Exactly.
We should probably establish a ground rule right up front, though.
Yeah.
People get defensive about this.
Oh, for sure. Go ahead.
This discussion is not a critique of freelancers themselves. I mean, freelancers are a vital, highly skilled part of the modern economy.
Right. We aren't attacking the gig economy workers here.
Not at all. What we are really examining today is flawed business architecture. It is an exploration of how founders and managers chronically misuse these temporary solutions.
Yeah, and the mechanics of how that misuse eventually spirals totally out of control.
Yeah.
Because the irony here is just incredible.
It really is.
The very people a founder brings in to save the startup money, to keep their monthly overhead comfortably low and stay agile, they almost always become the reason the company hemorrhages cash later on. Is the corporate equivalent of duct taping your plumbing.
I love that analogy. And to understand why this happens so frequently, we really have to look at the psychology of an early stage business. It begins with what is essentially a honeymoon phase.
Okay, let's unpack this because I see it all the time.
Right.
Why do founders fall so deeply in love with the freelance model in the first place?
Because it makes perfect, unassailable, logical sense at the time. I mean, when you were just starting out, your two biggest enemies are the clock and your fixed costs.
Right. You are racing against runway.
Exactly. You need a functional website up by Friday. You need your customer support queue handled because your inbox is an absolute disaster.
Oh, tell me about it.
You need a logo or a quick localized marketing campaign. But what you do not have is the venture capital to hire a full-time senior web developer, a full-time graphic designer, and a full-time marketing director.
Nor do you want the psychological commitment of those hires. I mean, the sheer terror of payroll taxes, benefits packages, and HR compliance.
It's a lot.
It is. Especially when you aren't even entirely sure if your core product is going to sell next month. It's paralyzing for a new founder.
So the freelance marketplace becomes the perfect pressure release valve. Independent contractors offer incredible speed and absolute cost control.
Right. You just pay the invoice and that's it.
Yeah, you pay an agreed upon rate for a specific deliverable and the relationship ends. It offers a maximum flexibility with incredibly low risk. You can scale your workforce up to 5 people on Tuesday and scale it back down to 0 on Friday.
Which feels like an absolute superpower when you're doing it. You feel like you're hacking the matrix of traditional business.
You really do.
You've got this army of global, specialized talent at your fingertips, and you are running a lean, mean, agile machine.
But wait, I have to push back a little here just to play devil's advocate.
Sure, go for it.
Aren't some of the sharpest specialists in the entire world independent contractors? I mean, if I want the absolute best conversion copywriter for a very specific sales page, I am probably going to find a high-end freelancer, right?
Oh, definitely.
I'm not going to find someone browsing LinkedIn for a middle management 9 to 5. We aren't saying freelancers deliver bad work, are we? No, not in the slightest. The talent pool in the independent market is staggering. The root cause of the operational disaster we are analyzing has nothing to do with the quality or skill of the individual worker.
Okay, so where does it actually break down?
The core problem only begins when a business treats a temporary, short-term solution as a permanent operational system.
Using the duct tape to hold the actual foundation of the house together.
Exactly. A freelancer's fundamental job is to execute a designated task. They parachute in, they build the specific widget you asked for, and they extract themselves.
Right.
They are not there to build the scaffolding that holds your entire company together. They are not building your internal company culture, they are not standardizing your operating procedures, and they certainly are not looking at your 3-year growth plan.
Here is where it gets really interesting, because the very thing that makes them so attractive to a nervous founder, the fact that they are disconnected, independent, and temporary, is exactly the mechanism that causes the business to bleed money later.
Yeah, it is exactly what drives the concept of paying twice.
Paying twice is such a perfect terminology for this phenomenon.
It really hits the nail on the head. You pay the first time for the quick work, the immediate relief of getting a project off your plate. And then a year or two down the line, you pay a second time, usually at a massive premium, to fix, rebuild, reorganize, or completely tear down that initial work because it was never designed to be scalable in the first place.
The case studies on this are just brutal.
Yeah.
Let us talk about the tech side first, because software development seems to be where this hurts the most.
Oh, absolutely. Tech is where the bills get astronomical.
Right. So imagine a founder who decides to hire a team of freelance developers to build a new app. They want it fast, they want it cheap, so they hire 3 different independent coders from 3 different time zones.
A recipe for disaster.
But initially it looks great. The coders hustle, they get it done, the platform launches on time, high fives all around.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture and look behind the curtain, what did they actually leave you with?
It is usually a complete horror show. The code technically functions, sure, but there is zero internal documentation.
None.
The back-end systems are a chaotic patchwork because developer A favored one specific coding framework. Developer B used an entirely different logic structure, and they never actually coordinated their architecture.
Yeah, they leave behind what engineers call technical debt.
Explain that for the listener. What is technical debt exactly?
For those unfamiliar, technical debt is basically the compounding interest you pay later for taking a coding shortcut today. When you rush a build without a unified system, the code becomes incredibly fragile.
So what happens a year later? Let's say the app actually takes off, you have a real user base, and you desperately need to add a new payment feature.
Right, so you bring in a full-time, dedicated internal engineering team to scale it up.
Finally making the big hire.
Exactly. And the new lead engineer takes one look at the existing code base, shakes their head, and says, "We cannot build on top of this. It is a house of cards."
Oh man, the dreaded House of Cards conversation.
If I touch one line of code, the whole app crashes. We have to tear it down to the studs and rebuild the entire platform from scratch. Boom! You just paid twice.
And the original freelancers did not even do anything wrong. They delivered exactly what was asked.
That is the critical distinction. It all comes down to accountability. The freelance developers were accountable for a transactional milestone getting the app to launch date.
Right.
They were not accountable for the long-term operational structure, the scalability, or the technical debt they were leaving behind.
And this exact same trap happens in marketing too. It's not just code.
Oh, marketing might be even more common.
Let us say a founder hires a freelancer to run Facebook ads, a different freelancer to curate the Instagram account, a third person to write weekly blog posts, and a fourth to design promotional graphics.
I mean, on a spreadsheet, that looks like fantastic output.
Right.
You have multiple marketing channels active simultaneously for a fraction of the cost of an agency.
But the brand itself develops multiple personality disorder. The Facebook ads are incredibly aggressive, screaming, "Buy now, 50% off," while the Instagram account is trying to be a moody, high-end luxury lifestyle board.
Exactly, and the blog posts read like dense academic journals.
The messaging is entirely fractured because there is no overarching strategy. Nobody is steering the ship.
The inevitable result is that customer confusion goes up, conversion rates drop, and the brand identity becomes diluted.
So then what happens?
Well, the founder eventually has to go out and hire an expensive marketing agency or a full-time chief marketing officer to come in, audit the whole mess, throw half of the existing assets in the trash, and realign the brand voice.
They paid for the scattered activity, and then they paid a massive premium for the alignment.
Yep. Paid twice.
So if the financial hit is that severe, paying for the rough draft and paying a premium for the rebuild, why don't founders see it coming? Are they just blinding themselves to the reality of the situation because they're obsessed with the idea of outsourcing?
They often don't see it coming because the massive financial cost is delayed. What hits them first on a day-to-day level is the operational toll.
What do you mean by that?
When you rely entirely on a fragmented web of freelancers, the immediate cost is actually cognitive. You are walking into a management nightmare driven by dependency risk.
Dependency risk? You mean the ghosting?
Yes. Independent contractors, by definition, have multiple clients. They have shifting priorities.
Right.
You are not their sole employer, which means you are not their sole priority. A key freelancer who has been running your customer support flawlessly for 6 months might land a massive, lucrative contract with an enterprise company and simply vanish.
Or they just experience a personal emergency and take a month off.
Exactly.
And because they were operating entirely independently in their own silo, and you never asked them to document their workflow, they take all that critical, undocumented institutional knowledge out the door with them.
It just disappears.
Suddenly, nobody in the company knows the admin login for the support software, nobody knows the protocol for processing a refund, and the entire department just halts.
And because of that fragmentation, the founder inadvertently turns into a human Wi-Fi router.
Oh, wow. I love that image, but it is absolutely terrifying.
It is the reality for thousands of business owners. Because freelancers often operate in completely separate systems. One is on Slack, one only answers emails, one refuses to use anything but WhatsApp. They don't communicate with each other.
So the founder becomes the hub.
Yes. You aren't a CEO anymore. You are literally just a router pinging messages back and forth.
You get an email from the copywriter. You download the document, you attach it to a Slack message for the designer. The designer asks a clarifying question. You copy-paste the designer's question back into an email to the copywriter.
It's exhausting just listening to it.
You are just frantically routing data between people who do not talk to each other.
And while you are busy being a human router, navigating the sheer exhaustion of constant context switching, who is actually growing the company?
Nobody.
Exactly. Who is thinking about the next product line or analyzing market trends or closing the next big enterprise account? No one. The business owner becomes the single biggest operational bottleneck in their own organization.
Which completely shatters the modern hustle culture narrative.
Oh, completely.
We are constantly fed this idea that outsourcing is the magic key to passive income and infinite scale.
Yeah.
The advice on every LinkedIn post is always just outsource it.
But what the hustle culture gurus conveniently leave out is that outsourcing without deeply established internal systems actually increases your management complexity. It does not decrease it.
Right.
Every time you add a disconnected freelancer to a chaotic environment, you add a new vector of chaos.
And the hidden productivity costs of turnover are staggering. I mean, think about it. A freelancer leaves. Now the founder has to spend exhausting hours finding a new one, vetting their portfolio, onboarding them, verbally explaining all the unspoken, undocumented rules of the business.
And doing multiple rounds of revisions because the new person doesn't quite get the brand yet.
Yes, that is all unbillable, exhausting labor.
If a business is experiencing constant turnover, repeated revisions on simple tasks, constant communication confusion where everyone is asking, wait, did we approve that? And chronically missed deadlines.
Those are the red flashing warning signs.
Absolutely, you were deep in the trap.
So what does this all mean? If the core problem isn't the freelancers themselves, but the vacuum of leadership and systems they operate in, how do you actually build that system without losing the agility that made you want to use freelancers in the first place?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because if I'm a listener right now, realizing my entire operation is held together by 3 independent contractors in a shared Google Drive folder, I am probably sweating a little bit. Nobody wants to spend 6 months writing corporate rule books.
Well, you don't have to write a corporate rule book, but you do have to adopt a fundamental shift in philosophy, which is structure before expansion.
Structure before expansion. I like that.
Before you hire another temporary worker to put out a fire, you have to build the firehouse.
How do you practically do that, though? How do you build the firehouse when the fire is already actively burning your business down?
It comes down to extracting the operational knowledge out of the founder's head and putting it into the DNA of the company.
Yep.
It means creating standard operating procedures, or SOPs, and it doesn't have to be a massive bureaucratic undertaking.
Right, because the fear is that creating processes will completely paralyze a fast-moving startup. They want to move fast and break things.
Exactly. But modern tools make this incredibly frictionless. A founder can simply record their screen while they are doing a task, let's say, processing a complex customer refund. They just talk through their decision-making process out loud, showing exactly which buttons to click and which databases to check. That 5-minute video becomes the baseline SOP.
So instead of vaguely telling a freelancer, hey, handle my customer support inbox, you are handing them a documented flowchart.
Right.
You are saying, here is the exact video and checklist for how we process refunds. Follow it.
Precisely. Think of a business without documented systems, like a computer trying to run entirely on RAM, its short-term memory.
Okay, that is a brilliant way to look at it.
If the power flickers, everything stored in RAM is instantly wiped out. That is what happens when a freelancer leaves. The knowledge is gone.
Wow, yeah.
Building SOPs and structural documentation is like saving your data to a hard drive. Even if the power goes out, the foundational knowledge of how the company operates remains intact and accessible.
Which means freelancers should really only be used strategically as an extension of your systems, not as a replacement for having systems in the first place.
Exactly. Once you have that hard drive, a documented system for how a blog post is conceptualized, written, edited, formatted, and published, then you can confidently hire a freelance writer to plug directly into that system.
They aren't inventing the wheel from scratch. They were just turning a wheel you have already perfectly balanced.
This raises an important question, though, about the future of remote work, because you still need people to execute the work long term.
So what does this all mean for staffing?
We are seeing a massive shift right now among successful scaling companies. They are moving away from the chaotic gig economy model and shifting toward a philosophy of dedicated remote staff.
And that isn't just a trendy new buzzword for outsourcing, right? It is a completely different operational philosophy.
It fundamentally changes the psychological investment of the worker. Instead of relying on a highly fragmented web of freelancers who are juggling 10 other clients, companies are hiring dedicated remote professionals. Even if these people are located across the globe, they are fully integrated into the company's internal environment.
Right. So they get a company email address. They're in the internal Slack channels. They attend the weekly all-hands meetings.
Exactly. Because they are integrated, they share your centralized communication tools and your long-term goals. They provide continuity.
They aren't just mercenaries completing an isolated task. They are actual team members.
And because they are team members, they understand the why behind the task. That context instantly reduces those endless, frustrating revision cycles we talked about earlier. They are culturally and operationally aligned with the company.
For the last decade, the ultimate business buzzword was flexibility. Everyone wanted a flexible gig-based workforce.
Right, it was the dream.
But the data shows us now that flexibility alone is no longer enough to sustain a growing business. The future belongs to intentional team design. Staffing decisions cannot just be reactive panic moves like, oh no, the website broke, we need a developer by Tuesday.
They have to be proactive. You have to stop and ask yourself, does this hire actually fit into where this company will be in 3 years?
If you just reflexively reach for the duct tape every time a pipe leaks, you are guaranteeing that you will be dealing with the exact same problem, but much more expensive, a year from now.
It is such a profound shift in perspective. We have to stop glorifying the cheap and fast hustle if it is secretly bankrupting our time and resources behind the scenes.
True. Sustainable growth requires doing the unglamorous work of building structure and long-term stability early on.
It requires pouring the concrete. You have to build the internal system so that the people you bring in actually have a solid foundation to stand on, rather than expecting temporary workers to hold the walls up for you.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today in this deep dive. From the initial honeymoon phase of the gig economy and the illusion of cost savings to the painful reality of technical debt and paying twice.
Yeah, and finally, to the crucial antidote of putting structure before expansion and utilizing dedicated remote staff.
It is a challenging transition that every growing business eventually has to navigate. But hopefully, for you listening, armed with the mechanics of how this trap actually works, you can avoid paying those hidden tolls along the way.
I hope so too.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Something that builds on everything we have discussed today about temporary fixes versus permanent architecture.
Yeah, think about the mechanics of how you operate right now. If every temporary fix, every undocumented workflow, or every quick hack you currently rely on in your own work or business suddenly became your permanent, unchangeable system tomorrow, how long would it take for your entire operation to grind to a complete halt?
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Thank you for listening to The Remote Revolution. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with other professionals who are building the future of work. To learn more about how Virtual Mojo helps businesses grow with highly trained virtual assistants and remote support teams, visit www.virtualmojo.com. For inquiries or collaborations, reach out to us at contact@virtualmojo.com. Until next time, keep building smarter systems and embracing the future of work.